Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I've been living on and working my family's farm for as long as I can remember. My great-grandfather bought this plot of land over 60 years ago, and it's been passed down through the generations ever since. This is my livelihood, my heritage, and I'll be damned if anyone tries taking that away from me. Things were going along just fine until that wretched Karen moved into the new housing development next door. Right from the start, she made it clear she had a problem with my farm being so close to her perfect little cookie-cutter community. I'd be out tending the crops and see her shaking her fist from her porch, complaining about the eyesore of my barns or something stupid like that. It started small at first. She'd call and leave angry voicemails about my rooster crowing too early in the morning, or she'd send over official-looking letters from some lawyer goon about noise violations. I tried being civil, I really did. Went over and had a chat to explain that farms have roosters and farm equipment makes noise. This is the country after all. But she just wouldn't let up. After a few months of back and forth, I started to worry. This is my family's legacy we're talking about. And farming isn't easy. It's tough enough without some entitled city slicker breathing down your neck about every little thing, so I started keeping real careful track of everything on the farm. Made sure none of my equipment was too loud. Didn't run the machines early or late. I even clipped my poor rooster's feathers so he wouldn't crow as much. But Karen somehow found new things to complain about every week. One day I come back from the feed store and there's a citation on my front door from the county about my so-called unsafe and unsanitary conditions. Are you kidding me? This farm has been running for 60 years without a single health code violation. But sure enough, I call up the county and find out Karen's been on a campaign to shut down my farm. She's filed complaint after complaint with pictures and videos she took of my barn, my animals, even my house, going on about how I'm violating codes and threatening the health of the community. I was furious. This is just a ploy to drive me off my own land that I've poured my heart and soul into for years. Well, I wasn't about to let that happen. I got myself a good lawyer and we went down to the county offices to set things straight. After reviewing my flawless records and seeing I've never had any legitimate complaints, they agreed Karen was way out of line. The county supervisor said he'd speak to her directly and get her to stop with these false accusations. I left feeling confident we'd cleared things up, but apparently Karen didn't get the message. A few weeks later, I'm in the middle of harvesting when a police cruiser comes pulling up the road flashing its lights. Two officers get out and start asking me all sorts of questions about what I'm doing on the property. I explain that this is my family's farm, has been for ages, and I've got every right to harvest my crops. But the cops say they got a call from my concerned neighbor Karen claiming I was illegally trespassing. I was seeing red at this point. That woman just wouldn't quit. I told the officers to hold on. I'd be right back with the paperwork. I grabbed my grandfather's original property deed, tax records, even old family photos, just to be thorough. When I came back and showed them the proof, you should have seen the look on those cops' faces. Like they just got caught wasting time on some wild goose chase. After profusely apologizing, the cops agreed to have a word with Karen about misusing emergency services. I thought she'd finally be off my case. But oh no, the very next week I hear a huge commotion down by my south field. I look out and nearly fell over from shock. There's a whole crew of heavy machinery, bulldozers, excavators, you name it, ripping up my soybean crops that still have weeks to go before harvest. I sprint outside and see Karen standing there with some shifty-looking developer guy grinning as they destroy my field. I dash over yelling for them to stop as the machines grind my plants into mush. Karen's there waving some approval permit from the county saying she's allowed to develop the land. Develop the land? This has been an active farm for generations. That's when I realized that Karen must have forged the permits to make it look like my farming license expired. I couldn't believe the length she was willing to go to in order to steal my property. Well, this old dog still has some fight left in her. I jumped into my truck and barreled straight to the county office, permits in hand, smoke just about coming out of my ears. Burst into the supervisor's office, shoved the documents at him, and raved about the unauthorized demolition and fraudulent paperwork. He took one look at the inconsistencies between the permits she provided and my original deed, and immediately got on the radio to the police station. I tell you, I peeled out of that parking lot and raced back to the farm faster than when I rushed to see my wife in labor. I arrived just in time to see two squad cars with lights blazing pull up behind the bulldozers. Karen screaming her head off about permits and rights while the cops handcuff her and her crony. An officer came over, apologized sincerely, and assured me they'd get to the bottom of this and compensate me for the damaged crops. In the end, Karen got charged with falsifying documents and attempting to seize my property under false pretenses. Her shady developer friend was just as guilty. Turns out he had been promised a cut of the profits from building houses on my land. The county sued the pants off both of them. Of course, money can't replace generations of blood, sweat, and tears on this farm, but I used the settlement to buy some new equipment and replant my ruined soybean field. And you better believe I got myself a top-notch security system in case that unhinged woman ever shows her face here again. The cops and county supervisor even came by to apologize in person for not seeing through Karen's harassment campaign sooner. They assured me I shouldn't have any more trouble from her. And so far, with Karen gone and my new security cameras, it's been blissful peace and quiet around here. I'm still as passionate as ever about carrying on my family's farming legacy. And no city slicker or deep-pocketed developer will ever take that away from me. As long as there's breath in this old body, I'll be working my grandfather's land just as he would have wanted. This farm's been part of me my whole life, and that's something money can't buy. The next one is a pro-revenge story. This is something that happened to my grandfather. To understand him, he was a quality control engineer for a pretty major manufacturing firm, and he was a master of aggressively renegotiating deals. He wasn't as a strict taskmaster, not entitled or unreasonable, but if something went wrong, there would be hell to pay. So he decided that he wanted to renovate his home, take the moderately big 2-story house and add 2 new bedrooms and a master bath. He brings in a contractor and gets a quote, says as part of the work they'll need to completely refinish the front too. Grandfather agrees and they start work. It's a serious effort. Winds up carving open the whole front of the house and all sorts of madness. Things go well enough at first. The destruction goes smoothly. Then start construction. At first things were just slow going. Sluggish delivery from sources, slow permits from the city. You get the idea. Then things get silly. It took them over 3 months to start and finish the plumbing. 4 months for the insulation. My grandfather is paying for a lot of time and not a lot of work done. He's irritated about the speed, but besides making some noise, there's not really much to be done about it. Bit by bit, the house starts to come together. Then, as they're putting on the weatherproofing, an inspector comes in and puts a stop to the whole affair. The contractor had improperly filed the plans. Now my grandfather is pretty furious by this point, but he keeps a cool enough head, starts asking what's going to be done about it with the contractor. The thinking was that they redraft the plans and send them out for reapproval. Contractor says he'll do it. 5 months go by. The house is just sitting there, fancy new framework still hanging in the breeze. Then all of a sudden, the contractor says he's pulling out. He had no idea the hell he'd unleashed. My grandfather didn't just jump straight to suing him. Oh no, sir. He took his time before even getting a lawyer. He did his homework. He tracked down every single client that this guy had had for the last 3 years and did a deep dive on the books to figure out what the hell happened. Turns out that this wasn't an isolated incident, just the most egregious. As it happens, this contractor had a penchant for screwing people over, turning minor Reno jobs into complete dumpster fires. His modus operandi was to file the changes with the city, make a private second set of plans, start making things based off the second set, intentionally let the city halt the construction, then restart the project on a third draft. After talking to some of the other customers, he and 8 of the other victims collectively filed charges against him. They annihilated this guy. They took every cent he had, which wasn't that much. His scheme hadn't actually done him that much good. Liquidated his company, sent him to something like 15 years in prison for fraud, and got the state to help recoup expenses. 2 months later, a new contracting company blitzed my grandfather's renovations, and he was able to drink in his master suite to toast his revenge. The next one is a petty revenge story. So my dad is a preacher and my mom does Sunday school. Any other PKs will know that means I was never allowed to win judged contests at church, like pumpkin carving. If I found the golden egg at Easter, I had to put it back so someone else could get it. And I never got the solos in choir unless no one else wanted it, because my parents were afraid the other parents would think they were just giving me things I don't deserve, even if my pumpkin was the best or I was the only one who was even singing in choir. Afterward, my parents would always take me and my sister out for a treat if something like that happened. We just weren't recognized publicly. I was 13 or 14 and we were working on a song for Easter that had some pretty low notes. There wasn't a solo, but my mom had me closest to the microphone since I was the only one who could hit the notes most of the time, and they pointed the speakers back at us so the others could hear me and hopefully adjust their pitch. Karen's daughter was a little younger than me and she could sing nice, but she was a high soprano and couldn't hit the lower notes. She had gotten not 1, but 2 solos in the Christmas play. One during one of the songs with everyone else, the other was her singing alone while I played the piano. During our song, you could barely hear her. She was off key and off tempo with my playing because she refused to take the music home with her to practice. Anyway, Karen walks in and watches for the rest of the rehearsal. After a bit, when Mom thinks everyone's got the hang of it, she has me move to my normal spot, in the back middle, so everyone could hear me during the actual performance. This tends to happen often with young country kids with little to no singing experience, and we continue as normal. Karen's daughter is about 2 people to the left of the mic, and still isn't able to hit the low notes, but everyone else is doing okay. We've got one more rehearsal before we have to sing this in church, so we should be fine. I wasn't there for this part, but apparently Karen approached my mom after and asked why I had the solo and not her daughter, who was obviously way more talented than me. Mom explained that I didn't have a solo, that there wasn't even a solo for this song, and that I was just singing into the mic so everyone else could get the hang of the song. Karen asked why she didn't have her daughter sing into the mic because she's a better singer than me. Now, I don't claim to be an amazing singer, but I've been in several choirs that I've gotten solos in. I usually get picked for the short solos entitled Kids Think They're Too Good For, or the director hears me during rehearsal and realizes I'm the only one actually changing the way I sing when he gives constructive criticism and rewards me with the only solo during the Veterans Day program. Love ya, Mr. C. My point is, I'm not a bad singer. My mom explains that Karen's daughter couldn't hit the lower notes and was struggling with this song. I just want to reiterate that this was a week and a half before we have to sing in church. There is one more rehearsal left. Karen: well, then just have them do a song. Daughter can sing. You can't have them do hard songs just so my name can feel better about herself. My mom, being the good pastor's wife she is, calmly tells her that the songs were actually picked out by Karen's mother, that the kids have already learned the song, and that Karen is welcome to take the CD home with her so her daughter can practice. Karen gets mad and tells her to just give her daughter a full song like she did at Christmas. My mom explains that the only reason her daughter had that solo was that a lot of people wanted me to play the piano since they had never heard me play, and I didn't want to do it myself because I was afraid people would think I was getting special treatment for being the pastor's kid. Not such an irrational fear now, huh, Dad? Karen scoffs. If she can't even play that silly song alone, why did you give her the solo? Singing is way harder than piano, and she shouldn't have the solo if she has stage fright. My mom is mad at this point and again explains that I didn't have the solo for Easter, that it was only for today's rehearsal, and that I didn't have stage fright. There weren't any solos for the Easter songs, and the daughter wouldn't be able to learn it in time at this point. Everyone else is gathering in the sanctuary to do the benediction, so Karen shuts up for the time being. The next week, the daughter comes in with some song lyrics and says her mom wants her to sing it on Sunday. This was Thursday. I'm looking over her shoulder and, not knowing what had happened last week, I mentioned that I think that song is in my piano book. Since we go straight from my piano lessons to church, I look, and I do have it. Since Karen hadn't sent a CD, my mom just smiles and tells the daughter that she can sing it, and I would play the piano with it. I run through it alone a few times while everyone else is eating dinner, and then we go through it together after we had gone through all the other songs. Karen comes in and sees us rehearsing together and starts talking loudly to my mom, which makes me mess up, having learned this song in about 10 minutes. I stop, and Karen starts saying that her daughter deserved a solo to herself and shouldn't have to share the spotlight with a spoiled brat who can't even play. My mom calmly points out the obvious, that Karen distracted me, and that I was doing very well considering how fast I had learned the song. She then tells me and the daughter to run through it again. As we do, the grandmother walks in and comments on how she was excited to hear me play again, and that we sounded amazing. If you've ever met a Southern mom, you know you don't get mad at someone else when your mom's in the room unless you're 110% sure she will side with you. Karen backed off and pouted for the rest of the night. Her daughter was supposed to be staying with one of the other church kids that night since we were out of school the next day for Good Friday, which means Karen left at the same time as her mother and couldn't say anything about it. Easter Sunday comes, and the same thing that occurred at Christmas happened. I had practiced non-stop for 2 days so I would be perfect, and Karen's daughter sounded like she hadn't practiced since Thursday, which she probably hadn't. I noticed that, during the group songs, the microphone was a lot closer to us than usual, which meant, instead of everyone being about the same distance from the mic, I was about 6 inches to a foot closer than everyone else. I listened to someone's recording later, and you could hear me ever so slightly louder than everyone else. I'm 99% sure that was on purpose. Way to go, Mom. The next one is a malicious compliance story. As a designer, I try to educate my clients on design, and why something has to be done a certain way. My agency is not cheap, so we make it quite clear that they are paying for our experience and knowledge, not some Photoshop monkey. Most of the time, my clients are appreciative and enjoy the extra guidance and professional advice. Occasionally, we get fun jobs. The sales pitch went well enough. The business owner, Bob, seemed like a decent guy and happy to trust our professional expertise. However, shortly after signing the deal, he brought on a new manager, Karen, who was put in charge of marketing, including the new website we were just contracted to do. It quickly became clear that Karen thought of herself as a multidisciplinary genius and despises us because she thinks she can do better than a professional design agency. Karen loves sending over incomprehensible design instructions and feedback in the form of design mock-ups she creates in PowerPoint. They as ugly as the devil's butthole after a strong curry, but we try our best to translate the abominations she birthed into good-looking professional design proposals that best reflects the intent of her ideas. Karen did not like it one bit. Karen was rude, uncooperative, and removed Bob from the email threads when we tried to reach out to him to get his opinion. When we sent over a design, she would idiot about how it wasn't what she wanted, and scream over the phone while our team patiently explained why we couldn't design exactly as she wanted. Mainly, it would be ugly as heck, and nobody would want to do business with them with a website like that. The last time Karen idioted about how we were stupid morons for not doing what she wanted, we got her on the phone with Bob. She was screaming incomprehensibly, and nobody got a word in. Finally, Bob took her side and said, "Karen is extremely experienced and knows what she's doing. I want your team to follow every instruction, exactly as she asks." No problem. Once again, Karen sent over a ridiculous 70 MB PowerPoint. If we followed it exactly, it would look like a website from the 90s with the worst UX ever. We went through every little pixel of her PPT, asking her, "So do you want us to copy this exactly?" To which she would reply with a smug, "Yes." So we documented her instructions down to the letter to cover our asses. Once again, we asked Bob, "Are you sure?" Reply, "Yes, please hurry up and make those changes exactly as she asked." Okie dokie. We copied every ugly font choice, every terrible gradient, every hideous element into the design. We even went the extra mile to export the ugly lopsided shapes she drew as PNG graphics, so it would all be exactly as she wanted. Then we sent the design over. "Here is the design. We have done everything exactly as instructed." Karen once again replied, taking Bob out of the loop, "Perfect. Now it wasn't so hard to do things exactly as I asked, was it?" We waited. Bob exploded, demanding a meeting the very next day to explain why we were delivering such shoddy work. We go to the meeting and Karen starts demanding that we propose a completely new design. We presented all past designs, the document in which Karen confirmed that she wanted all the changes, the countless emails in which we painstakingly explained to her why her ideas suck, and finally, the last email in which she praised us. "You see, Bob, after our last call with you, we had followed Karen's instructions to the letter, exactly as she had asked. She seemed very happy with it. I am confused. Why the quick change of heart?" I then pull out the contract and calmly point out the portion which stated the number of design proposals we would create. Karen had used up all of it. I had reminded her that she was limited to X number of proposals, but she clearly didn't remember any of it because she didn't bother reading our emails, and would keep talking or yelling over us when she spoke on the phone. I looked Bob in the eye and told him he could either pay extra for each additional new proposal Karen wants, or choose from the existing designs done. They ask for some time to discuss privately. We break for coffee. "Well, Karen is extremely experienced in this field. We will go with the last design since it is exactly as she wanted." Even my intern couldn't hold back his surprise. As we drive back to the office, he asks, "Is Karen sleeping with Bob or something? Why does she have him by the balls like that?" I shrug. It's his business, and we're getting paid anyway, and he clearly doesn't appreciate our design expertise after all. The less time we spend arguing with them, the more time we could use to focus on my appreciative, good clients. We make Bob and Karen sign off on the design and finish up the project quickly. Karen still tries to be difficult, but we stick to the contracted terms, and she couldn't do anything. 2 months after the project ended, I get a call from Bob. He began with some small talk about innocuous project-related business, but I realized it wasn't the purpose of his call. Karen had been fired after making more serious mistakes causing major losses to his company. He sounded contrite, but did not offer any real apology. "That's terrible, Bob. I'm so shocked. I thought Karen was extremely experienced and knew what she was doing." The next one is an entitled people story. This took place yesterday at a store here in Costa Rica named Maxi Polly. It's a Walmart subsidiary, and you can buy American brands like Walmart's own brand Great Value there. I go there when I need pancake syrup, Oreos, and a few other things. Mostly, though, it's Costa Rican products and groceries. Got in line to purchase my items, and I could see the folks ahead of me are other Americans, and it looked like by what they were buying that they were newly arrived for a months-long stay. Not the kinds of stuff you buy if you're in a hotel. They were perfectly normal right up until the cashier asked them in Spanish if they needed an electronic receipt and how much the order was. They went from normal to entitled in a split second. They started huffily ordering the cashier to speak English to them. Insisted on it. Of course he couldn't, the manager was called. But the manager does not speak English either. I offered to translate for them, but they both insisted English should be fluently spoken because it's a Walmart subsidiary, which is a U.S. company. No, it is not. Walmart Central America is not U.S. owned. They refused. Turned into something of a standoff until the cashier kept pointing at the total until finally they paid and left. Have a feeling they're not going to like living in this section of Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Few speak English here. You need at least some small pidgin Spanish to get around. It's the Ticos country, not the USA. Why on earth would you even ever think that anyone would speak English to you? Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.